Okay. And from then on, so you got pulled into the McPherson case. And what were your duties throughout the rest of the case when it went to litigation and everything?
Okay. I'll tell you what happened. The next morning I went to investigate what went on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like walking into a disaster area. There was like 15 to 20 people who had been attendants. And it was like walking into a flood scene or something. I mean, they all looked devastated. They lacked sleep. Some of them had scratches and bruises from getting hit by Lisa. All of them were extremely emotionally distraught because each one of them put it on their shoulders that they had done something wrong. Well, quite frankly, everybody did something wrong because the whole thing was done wrong. I mean, you don't have 15 different people rotating in and out of a room with somebody who's psychotic. The whole idea of this this isolation is you don't have any external stimuli re-stimulating the person and getting them to set off again. If you have utter stillness and utter quiet, they tend to calm down enough that they can then communicate, and you can do some auditing, and then you can help bring them up and pull them out of the thing. Tom, I've seen this work on a number of people over the years, all the way from my beginning days in Scientology. It's really quite simple. They have 15 people rotating in and out. She's getting a different new stranger in the room every other day. They've got people in there bawling their eyes out. You're not supposed to say a word. In fact, you're not even supposed to be in the room. Okay? I mean, I can't describe to you how 180 degrees diametrically opposed the handling of her was to what the scripture says is the way you're supposed to handle something like that.
In fact, you had a phrase for how it was handled. A perfect storm or something.
I thought it was a perfect storm of incompetence and irresponsibility. And I say the irresponsibility and incompetence because the writings say that you've got to have a complete, full medical examination. You've got to rule out that this person isn't in some kind of hidden pain, and that's the source of all this, okay? You're not going to pull a person out of a wild area of spiritual and mental distraught if they're in excruciating pain. So a complete, thorough medical examination is required, okay? Never had it. They had a woman in there who was on staff, who was a doctor, who you later uncovered didn't even have a license and had lost her license for abusing medical prescription drugs. Who the CS, who's really the person directing the whole thing, he's assuming that she's done such, but there's no evidence she's ever done such. And it's a dueling match between Elaine Kartazinski, the CS, and Janice Johnson, the doctor. Janice Johnson thinks, boy, I'm under the direct supervision of a Class 12, the top CS at the Mecca of technical perfection, and he ain't telling me to do anything, so I must be doing everything right. You understand? And on the other hand, you got Elaine thinking, well, nothing serious can actually happen here because I've got a bona fide doctor who's going in to see her every single day. So each of them are pointing the finger in the other direction. Of all the people in the entire place, I mean, we had maids who were from Central America who couldn't even speak English, who spent an afternoon in there. 201, each one of them felt fully responsible for the result of that. The only ones that didn't were Elaine and Janice. Now, Elaine ultimately did, but I don't know if Janice ever did. But you understand what I mean by irresponsibility. Mm-hmm. They're pointing the fingers at one another, and they're the only two who were doing that. Everybody else who had no responsibility, really, because they're really at the beck and call of Janice and Elaine, they feel fully responsible. So that's the state of affairs. I know early on, that same day while I was doing all that, Angie said she had to go because she had to go handle the folder, which I subsequently learned was vetted of any evidences of Miscavige's hand in the deal. But this is what happened. So my whole mandate is to handle the internal aspect of it, just to get to the truth. And a day into that, the Clearwater police show up and say they want to speak to Elaine and Janice. Well, I guess somebody identified Elaine and Janice. I don't know how that worked, or they just voluntarily were the ones that said they were responsible. They had to go to the Clearwater Bank building to see the police. Not on my lines at all, because I'm only handling this, orders that are issued as per David Miscavige's orders. Well, what happens is Janice and Elaine go in and tell the police a complete and utter lie. They said there was no religious services whatsoever. This was all a situation of a woman coming for rest and relaxation at the Fort Harrison. So now that's on record with the police, okay? Later that day or that evening, I get a call that I got to go out to Clearwater Beach to get on a payphone to get a confidential call from David Miscavige. I get the call, and he says to me, "Why aren't you all over this thing? Why is Tom DeVocht handling the police, and why is Tom DeVocht arranging interviews? Where are you in all this? Why are you?" And I'm not going to. By the nature of the whole relationship, you don't say, "Well, sir, 3 months ago you told me to shut my mouth," and when somebody says jump, I say how high. You don't do that. You listen and you take it, and whatever. But he's now saying, "Get on it." So that's the hand I'm dealt. I got 2 false sworn statements to law enforcement agents. I've got the worst possible perfect storm of incompetence and irresponsibility in terms of what actually went down, okay? And that's how it begins.